Hello students, today I'm going to go over the assignment that you recently got called Jump Masked with Blur Filter Effect. Okay, so go to your assignments. It should be on upcoming assignments, but if you do it a little bit later, it might be on past due assignments. Okay, so you open this up. Today we're going to be opening one of our jump pictures. I've asked my students to take one of their jump pictures, select and mask it, and then bring that person jumping into a background where it looks like they're jumping in someplace fantastic or someplace that they're jumping up high, something other than just jumping, in the hallway at school. Okay, so I'm going to use an example from a former student, and you guys can follow along by using this same photo. Okay, so on the assignment, you're going to find this fast shutter speed copy. We're going to click on this three dots here, go to download. Okay, and then I'm going to open this to show you where we're going with this assignment. Okay, so what we're going to be doing is mimicking slow shutter speed effects, but doing it digitally instead of doing it with practical effects of using a slow shutter speed on a camera. Soon, we're going to be doing some slow shutter speed effects in camera. But, okay, so there are some filters in Photoshop. The first one is the Gaussian blur. This kind of mimics actually shallow depth of field where the background looks a little blurrier than the subjects. I'm going to show you this one in person. So for today, I'm not going to go over this particular filter on the video. All right, we're going to be going over the other three. So the first one is motion blur, in which it looks like you're panning and following the subjects with a slow shutter speed as they jump. So you would point the camera at the subjects and follow them up as they jump. All right, the next one is the radial zoom blur, and that one mimics it as if you were zooming the camera lens in during a slow shutter speed effect. And then the last one is called the radial blur, where you take the camera and you spin it or you rotate it in a circular motion during the slow shutter speed effect. All right, so we're going to close this up. That is where we're going with this. And I've already opened up Photoshop. I'm going to go to Open. And let's see here what's happening. Open, there we go. And I've downloaded this 3 times already, but here we go. I find my fast shutter speed copy. Click on that and open it. All right, I have my desktop set up as I've asked you all to set yours up. Here on the toolbar, we have it doubled up. Over on the right, I've got history, adjustments, layers, properties, and navigator. Those are the things we're going to need. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is take a look at the layers palette. Now, if you have selected and masked and dragged your picture into a new background, you are going to have 2 layers. This one has already been saved as a JPEG, so it's flattened into 1 layer. But if you have 2 or more layers, you want to go to Layer and go down to Flatten Image. Right here is Flatten Image. It's grayed out right now because this particular image is already flattened. But if yours has more than 1 layer, that option will be available. Okay, so flatten the image first. But then what we have to do is duplicate the image because we're going to be adding the filter onto the duplicate, adding a mask, and bringing back some of the other picture underneath. Okay, to duplicate, there's one of 2 ways. We can click and hold this background layer and drag it down to the little square with the plus, which is a new layer. Okay, it's just to the left of the trash can, and that made a copy. I'm going to go back 1 step with a keyboard shortcut, Command Z. Oops, let me try that again. There we go, Command Z. Another way of duplicating the layer is by using a keyboard shortcut. If you push Command and J, that duplicates the layer as well. All right, next we are going up to the filter on the menu bar. We're going to filter and we're going to go down to blur in the drop down menu. Okay, we're going to see all these blur options. The first one we're going to go to is motion blur. Okay, so with motion blur, you're going to get this little window, and first of all, you can make the blur less or more. In this particular blur case, I would probably go a little bit more so you really see the effect. But if you go too much, you really blur it so that the subject becomes obscured. So you want to find just the right amount of blur where you see the lines going up and down, and yet you still, can kind of see the subject. All right, over here, you will see you can make the blur go in different directions. But since this subject is jumping up and down, most likely if you were doing a panning shot where you follow the subject during a slow shutter speed, you would be panning the camera up and down. So I'm going to make it go up and down. Notice in our little thumbnail here, I'm going to click and hold. You can see the before and the after when I let go. All right, so I'm going to push OK, and now it's applied it to this layer. The next thing we need to do is add a filter. There we go. And we're going to go over to our brush tool. We're going to set the brush options up here. So you go to the little drop down on the brush options, and underneath the general brushes, we're going to choose a soft round brush. Okay. And the size we're going to set by, I'm going to click off. If you look over on your keyboard to the right of the letter P, don't press the letter P, because if you do, you're going to go directly to the pen tool, and then you'll have to switch back to the brush tool. All right, but to the right of the letter P, there are two brackets. The right bracket, if you click it, press it over and over, it makes the brush bigger. The left bracket makes it smaller. Okay, so we can adjust the size that way. The mode should be set on normal, the opacity at 100%, and the flow at 100%. The rest we can kind of leave as it is. Over here on the toolbar, we are going to select black. The little tiny color picker right here, okay, these little thumbnails, if I click on the black right there, oops, I can click here and black and white will come up in the big squares, and then you can use this double-headed arrow to switch to black on top. All right, since I have the mask selected, not the photo, okay, we want the mask selected, I can go in now with the black brush, and it acts kind of like an eraser tool, but it's erasing that top layer. Okay, so the idea is you want it to look like the blur is coming over the top of the edges of your subject. Okay, so something like this. If you bring back some of the background too much, you don't want the background to look focused. So I'm switching it back to white because white will bring back the blurring. Okay, and then switch it back to black again. Okay, so you kind of go through and go down the middle of the body like this. Okay, and then I'm going to switch to white, and there were a few places here. Here, I'm going to push Command 0 to make it fit the screen. I can even go in and use the navigator here and zoom in on certain areas. So, oh yeah, now I see. I'm going to use my white brush to kind of bring the blurring over the edge of the person, of the subject. Like that. Switch to black. Make the brush a little smaller. There we go. Okay. And here, oops, switch to white. Bring it back. Again, you want that blurring to kind of come over the edge of the subject. There we go. So it looks like you were, there we go. That one's kind of tricky. There we go. Bring it over the top like that. Okay, Command 0 makes it fit the screen. Okay, so now, this looks pretty good. It looks like I followed the subject as he was jumping up. The background looks blurred. The subject has some focus to it. So I can go ahead and go to File and go to Save As, and I'm going to call this Motion Blur. And I will save it as, you will, actually no, we're going to save it as a TIFF. You don't have to save it as a copy to save it as a TIFF, but we're going to go to TIFF and make sure you save on your desktop. You can start a new folder called Blurring Effects. Push Create. Okay, and we're going to save that into it. Okay, I'm not going to say don't show again. There we go. All right, so because I'm going to use the same picture, okay, I can just delete this layer and start again to do the next one. So I'm going to click and drag down to the trash can, and then I can reduplicate this layer, Command J, or drag it to this plus. Okay. All right, the next one, filter, blur. This time, the next two, we're going to use the radial blur. Go to radial blur, and here you're going to choose, here's the radial blur options window. We're going to choose either spin or zoom. We're going to start with zoom. Okay, we want, let's see, good quality is good. Okay, here you can set the amount, and unfortunately it doesn't really give you a preview. So if you don't like it, you just have to kind of go back in history and try it again. The one suggestion I will make is that you don't want to do it too little because you won't really see the effect much, but you don't want to overdo it and go with 100% either because it makes it too blurry, and again, it obscures the subject. So I'm going to go somewhere near the middle. I'm going to try 40, okay? I'm going to push 40, and now I'll push OK. All right, I'm going to Command Z, go back in history, because there is one more thing that I forgot to show you. Command Z or step back in history one. I'm going to go back to the radial blur, filter, blur, radial. Okay. The other thing that you can do is you can set where the center point of the zoom is. Okay. So it was in the center of him. I might want to bring it up a little bit higher so it kind of gets a little bit closer to his face. Okay, so we can see the face a little bit better. All right, now I'm going to push OK. A little bit better. Okay, it's a little higher up. But notice that all of the lines are pulling in towards the center here. All right, we're going to do the same thing we did before. Go to Layers, and we're going to add a mask. Go to the brush. It's going to be a soft round brush, 100% opacity and flow. Switch to black on top and use the bracket tool, and we're painting on the mask again. So you do this similar kind of thing to what you did with the motion blur. Okay, so I think that's pretty good. With the legs, I'm going to leave them alone. I'm going to keep it more on the upper body. All right, so that one is done. I'm going to go to File, Save As, save it as a TIFF, switch it to the blurring effects folder that I already made, and call this one Radial Zoom. Okay, and our last one, I'm going to delete that one and then duplicate, bring it down like this to duplicate, or Command J, and we're going to go to Filter. The next one is going to be Radial Blur, Radial Spin Blur. So we're going to go to Filter, Blur, Radial Blur, and we're going to switch it to Spin. So I'm going to leave it about in the same spot because that looked pretty good as far as the placement on him. Push So again, we have to do the amount. This one especially, you don't want to do too much. So maybe I'm going to go around 30. Let's give that a try. Okay, that's a lot. I'm going to go back in history, Command Z or step back. And I'm going to go back to the filter, blur, and go to radial blur. And I'm going to bring it down a little bit more. I'm going to go more like 12. Push OK. There we go. Now we see a little bit more of the subject. Go to layers, and we're going to add a mask. And you want the black brush again, and bring back just kind of the center of the subject. Just a little bit. There we go. Okay. And that makes it look like you were spinning the camera during a slow shutter speed. All right, so I'm going to go to File, Save As, make it a TIFF. Okay, and I'm going to call it Radial Spin. There we go. So now you have it. And what I'd like you to do is practice it on the one that I gave you on the assignment, but then I'd like you to do it with your own pictures. Okay? All right. Good luck. Bye-bye.